Hi, AP Lang students. I am going to walk you through what we are going to do this week. We are going to look at some rhetorical analysis as applied to the Queen's speech that Queen Elizabeth II delivered to her people in England on April 4th concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. So, this lesson is going to help you guys practice rhetorical analysis for the Queen's televised coronavirus speech. And we're going to be using the rhetorical analysis checklist as a guide. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to watch the 4-minute video of the Queen's speech. We're going to read the prompt, and so that way you will understand the task that we are asking you to do. We're going to go through a step-by-step guide, and then we are going to end with you being able to write your own speech to your communities, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So first things first, you guys have access to this presentation. So this is the video for the Queen's speech. I'm actually not going to play it, but what you can do is you can pause this video and go ahead and watch the video of the Queen. Okay, so you have watched the video of the Queen, and we are going to go back and talk about the materials now. So now that you've watched the video, this is what we are going to do with it and how we're going to break it down. I have included a rhetorical analysis checklist for you. So this rhetorical analysis checklist, this is going to help us identify exactly what type of speech is being given, who the audience is, what the purpose is, tone, context, all of the things that you will need to do. This is basically just a different way of doing soapstone or Space Cat, as we have done Space Cat in the classroom. So this is just another tool or checklist that you can use in order to break down speeches and passages of text. So we're going to look at this piece by piece. If you would like to have directly in front of you the prompt, this is the prompt along with a transcript of the Queen's speech. This may be beneficial to you to go ahead and print so you can make notes on it, highlight it, but that is a hard copy for you. So maybe if you want to have that open in another tab if you can't print it. But being able to take notes on this is going to be very helpful. So while we have this screen up, let's take a look at the prompt. And the prompt says, on April 5th, 2020, Queen Elizabeth II appeared on television to offer her thoughts on the current crisis facing her nation, the global coronavirus pandemic. Read the following transcript of her speech carefully. Then write a well-developed essay in which you analyze the choices Queen Elizabeth II makes to convey her message to the audience. Now, we're not going to be writing that essay, but we are going to be taking a look at a possible thesis for it. So this is what a prompt would look like if we were going to be using this as an actual question to rhetorical analysis prompt. So let's go back. Once again, there's the speech if you need to watch it. And I'm going to make this bigger now. So now we're going to use the guide as it is applied to the Queen's address. The first thing is we need to figure out what type of discourse is this? Is it a letter? Is it an essay, fiction, nonfiction? Well, obviously this is a speech. It was a televised speech where Queen Elizabeth II was addressing the people of her country. What is her purpose? Her purpose, first and foremost, is to inform. She also begins her speech with encouragement. as well as thanks. She is encouraging her people. She is thanking the first responders, the medical field, and workers as well. So she's doing it to inform her subjects. Sorry, she's using it to inform her subjects, to encourage them during this time, as well as to commend the actions of those who are following the quarantine, as well as those who are working in the health services, the food services, and community services. She's also commending those who are adhering to the stay-at-home um, requirement. And she's also being reassuring to her subjects. She's letting them know that this is a difficult time, but if we all continue to do what we need to do in our own lives, that we will be able to support each other. So the main subject for this particular speech is nationalism. It's unity of the British country and countries. And it's also dealing with overcoming a challenge, which is the coronavirus, the COVID-19, as well as the stay at home. She does acknowledge that the stay at home edict is very difficult to follow, but it is necessary at this time. So she does address overcoming a lot of challenges that this pandemic is causing, as well as inciting a sense of nationalism among her people. So the context or the history, this does take place on April 5th, 2020. I think I misspoke at the beginning and said it was April 4th. My apologies. It is given on April 5th. The period is present day, 21st century, so it is current. And this is what we know about the historical context. It is a global pandemic. She is addressing the coronavirus or COVID-19, and as well as the nation's stay-at-home quarantine. So this is what is happening in this point in time in history at the time that she delivers this message. So what do we know about the speaker? We know that she is a woman. We know that she is possibly still alive. As far as we know, she is still alive. Whether she is familiar or unfamiliar to you, that's going to be up to you to determine. Obviously, she is familiar to me because I've been to England. I know who she is. I am very familiar with British history, so I am well aware of who Queen Elizabeth II is. And I would consider her to be relatively famous, since she is the Queen of England. So some things that you may want to do, a little bit of research on Queen Elizabeth II. She is one of the longest reigning monarchs. She is the head of state and does the ceremonial duties. She has high approval ratings. And this is actually a very rare occasion for her to take to the television and have a public speech. But obviously, these are unprecedented times, and she has foregone the idea that she needs to remain closed off from her subjects, and she has reached out to them in a very public, albeit televised way. So the tone that Queen Elizabeth uses in this speech, the one that really stood out to me was she is very calm and composed. She speaks very slowly. She enunciates her words clearly. We are able to follow what she says because she speaks at a very smooth, measured pace. So that really carries her her idea of keeping everybody calm, keeping everybody comforted. It's as if your mom is trying to calm you in a very, very chaotic time. She is going to speak slowly, calmly, softly in order to bring anxiety down. And that, to me, is the overall tone of Queen Elizabeth II's speech. She is very calm and composed. She also is very matter of fact. This is a difficult time. This is what we must do in order to maintain our health, our safety, and our unity as a country. If you notice, the speech is only 4 minutes long, 4.5 minutes long. So she's not adding a whole lot of verboseness to the speech. She's keeping it very short and to the point. She approaches it very sympathetic. She says that she understands that this is a difficult time. She understands that the quarantine presents its own challenges, financially, socially, with families being separated during this time. She also adds a bit of sentimentality to it by adding that anecdote of her and her sister giving that speech. Back in 1940. So she reminisces that this is not the first time that she has had to do something like this, that this had to be addressed back in the 1940s, and that she now finds herself doing it again. She is very comforting, and she also is very laudatory. This means that she is showing thankfulness and gratitude to very specific groups of people in her country. So she is providing that praise to the people who are working on the front lines. So even though she is matter of fact, she is very calm, very composed, shows sympathy, adds some sentimentality in there. She is comforting her subjects as well as lauding praise on the people who are taking an active role in the pandemic. Okay, now this is where you guys are going to be doing some work. So we have a chart that needs to get filled out. Once again, you can just take notes, or you can put this in a Google document. But we are going to work on formulating an introduction and open thesis. So we are going to first come up with the hook. So the hook is where you make a connection to the topic or share an insight. So this could be historically, philosophically, personally, or academically. It could be any type of those insights. Then you're going to do the who and the how. You're going to introduce the author and speaker and the situation. Obviously, the speaker is Queen Elizabeth II, and the situation is the pandemic, the coronavirus, COVID-19, and the stay-at-home quarantine. So you're going to have to come up with the introduction for the type of text and the overall tone and quality, which, if you were taking notes or at least marking it in the prompt for this handout, all you have to do is pull that information from those blocks. Now the what. This is where you're going to explain in your own words what the entire passage happens to be about. So what is the overall argument? What is she doing? So let's read those bold letters in capital down at the bottom. It says, keep the main argument in mind. Always circle back to this at the end of each body paragraph by typing in how the sub-argument supports this. This is where focus comes in. You want to make sure that the main argument, the what, is something that is recurring throughout your essay. So make sure that this is how you maintain your focus. You are going to keep circling back to the what. So this is a sample introduction with the open thesis that was written. In a rare television appearance to the public, Queen Elizabeth II addresses her nation on April 5th, 2020, in the midst of a global pandemic that has disrupted normal life. In her speech, the Queen acknowledged the work of frontline workers who are essential in combating the pandemic and reminded British citizens of their sense of nationalism and their strength of character as a way to overcome their present struggle. So now we're going to go through part by part through a guided analysis. So if you see, here is part of the transcript of the Queen's speech. And the question is, what is the main message of the first paragraph in the speech? Okay, so this is something that you can look at. I'll give you a couple minutes. I would suggest that perhaps you hit pause on the video and take a minute to try to fill in where the arrow is pointing, where you can put in your paraphrased information in the checklist. So you see where that arrow is pointing to those blank lines? How about you pause, take a couple minutes, read over this first paragraph, and see what you can come up with in that paraphrase checklist. Okay, so now that you've done that, we are going to look at the next two paragraphs. And I want you to take a moment, circle the words in the passage that are abstract. Okay, so abstract means that it is not physical. So these are going to be words that are conceptual, thematic, or philosophical. Then I want you to underline the words that are concrete. Okay, so these are going to be objects. So I suggest that you pause the video again, take about 5 minutes, and work your way through this. Okay, so after you have done that, here are some things that perhaps you should have circled or underlined. So we have in the beginning these abstract words that we were supposed to circle. Remember that? So the ones that are circled: pride, self-discipline, good-humored, resolve. She says pride again. And then the last abstract word is national spirit. She then changes into a more concrete type verbiage. For instance, the rainbows drawn by children, heartwarming stories of people coming together, delivering food parcels and medicines. So there is a reason why she moves from abstract into concrete. She gives examples of how her subjects can respond positively to the challenges that the quarantine and the coronavirus have had on their country. She tells them to have pride. She tells them to use self-discipline, to have good-humored resolve, and that this will lead to national spirit. So she paints that picture, but when it comes down to it, how do we accomplish that? She gives us the concrete examples at that point. The rainbows drawn by children, telling the heartwarming stories of how people are coming together, and then also the delivering of the food and the medicines. She continues to go on, checking on neighbors, converting businesses to help a relief effort. So she starts with the abstract to tell us that this is the goal that she is hoping her subjects will reach, but she then changes it to concrete ways of accomplishing those abstract goals. So here's the second part. As you can see, the analysis is already filled in for you. Queen Elizabeth II appeals to nationalism and the spirit of the British in order to reassure the public that they can overcome the present challenge with their good-humored resolve. And she illustrates how the British citizens are coming together during this time of crisis. So that is the children drawing the rainbows, as well as the other pieces that were underlined in the passage in the previous slide. So she uses emphasis and underscores her message. She uses specific examples and illustrations, such as the underlined portions. She uses imagery, the children drawing the rainbows. I just think that's beautiful. And she uses word choices that are evoking emotion as well. Now we have a bit of a shift in tone in this particular paragraph, in this final paragraph. This is where she shares that story of the very first broadcast that she made with her sister, where they were speaking to the children that had been evacuated from their homes and sent away for their own safety. This is during World War II. So once again, we're dealing with people who have had to be separated from their families for their own safety. And she is using this anecdote, this story, this reminiscent of the past, in order to show that the Brits have been through this before. And now they're going through something very similar again. And that they came through it the first time, they will come through it the second time. She ends the speech with a lot of encouragement, where she once again praises the advances of science and the compassion to heal. She is certain that they will succeed, and that success will belong to everybody in the country. She tells them to take comfort, that while there's still a lot more that we need to endure, that better days are coming. And I love how she ends with the repetition, we will be with our friends again, we will be with our families again, we will meet again, which is just beautiful repetition and parallelism in how she ends this speech. So if we look at the part-by-part guided analysis, so the anecdote she references about her first TV broadcast during World War II serves to parallel today's circumstance with another historical moment where Britain faced another great struggle. She emphasizes the word we as a all-inclusive, we are in this together. She includes herself, which puts her right on the level with her subjects, that she is going through the same exact thing, that they are going through the same struggles. So if you look at the check boxes, she is insisting. She underscores her point about togetherness, and there is a tone shift as well. She starts with the anecdote. So we have checked the box for anecdotal and observation. She does reference and alludes to the time that happened back in World War II. She uses repetition, parallelism towards the end to emphasize that better days are coming when we will all be able to gather together again. So this is your assignment now. Now that we have looked through her speech and we have been able to analyze it paragraph by paragraph, we have seen many of the rhetorical devices and choices that Queen Elizabeth II has made, like repetition, like imagery, like a tone shift from abstract ideas into concrete images. She has also used an anecdote. She has used a lot of rhetorical strategies in her speech. So using her speech as a model, you are going to write your own speech to your community, which would be Surprise, Arizona, possibly your neighborhood if you wanted to get specific to your audience, or your high school at Shadow Ridge. You can choose between one of those three. You do not need to write to all three. So either choose Surprise, your personal neighborhood, or Shadow Ridge High School. You're going to highlight the rhetorical strategies that you used and identify them in a key at the bottom of the Google document. This does not need to be a 3-page speech. Please keep it to 1 to 1.5 pages. And please make sure that you include that key. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or Miss Roberts. And we will do our very best to conference with you to answer your questions and to help guide you as you write this speech to your community, neighborhood, or high school. Stay well, stay healthy, guys.